Still trying to herd all those ducks into a nice neat row before you get started with your business or project? Maybe you've already started, but your fear is stopping you from up-leveling. Or maybe you've spent your life saying yes to everyone else, but committing to yourself is still on your to-do list. Hi, I'm Claire Barton, and I'm a recovering perfectionist too. Welcome to the show where I share simple, practical, and mindset tips to get you doing work you're passionate about, making the money you want, and spending your time and energy building your dream lifestyle. Hey, recovering perfectionists, it's Claire here, and today I am welcoming a very special person. Her name is Honor Newman, and she's a psychologist who's been specialising in working with women with perfectionism for the last 7 years. So it's pretty exciting to speak to an actual specialist and a psychologist on the show. Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist, Honor.
Thank you, Claire. I'm very happy to be here.
That's awesome. Awesome. We finally got here. So we were just talking about before we started recording that most of the eps on the show are anecdotally, we talk to people who identify as perfectionists or recovering perfectionists, or who have had blocks around perfectionism that have stopped them getting somewhere in their life or their business in the past, whether it's in their personal life, their bodies, their business, their career, that sort of thing. But it's a real treat to actually talk to someone about the science and the psychological kind of aspect of perfectionism as well. It's something that I generally steer well clear of because it's not my specialty, obviously. # not a doctor, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, welcome. I'll hand over to you to give us a bit of your story and a bit of your background and how you came into being specialising in this area.
Sure. So when I finished my psychology master's degree, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and this opportunity came up to work with women with postnatal depression. And so I'm like, yep, great, I'll do that. And then I noticed that they all had this perfectionistic personality type, and I just kept hearing it over and over again, and it was really causing them a lot of struggles with motherhood. So this is where it first kind of came up to my attention. Also on the kind of personal side, around the age of 30, I experienced a lot of burnout, and I couldn't find any help in the medical profession to help me recover from this. It was always like, I'll go on antidepressants or have a rest or this or that. And I'm like, well, that's not satisfactory. So I had to go on my own healing journey. And what I uncovered through unraveling all these perfectionistic habits that led me up to that point.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think, one thing that we do talk about a lot, and one thing that I would agree seems to be quite a common thing, is that there's often a catalyst that kind of makes us go, okay, I need to stop this shit. I need to stop doing the perfectionist thing and trying to be, the people pleaser, the yes person, doing all the things and keeping all the balls in the air and that sort of thing. And yet often it is career related or health related or becoming a mum. That's certainly what it was for me. And I've told the story 1,000 times. I won't bore everyone with it again, but I definitely had moments where I was beating myself up because of this thin layer of dust I could see at 4 o'clock from where I was sitting feeding my baby on the couch. I could see this thin layer of dust on the TV cabinet and was just beating myself up about it for weeks on end, going, oh my gosh, I still haven't dusted that bloody thing. And then going, what the hell, Claire, you've kept a baby alive with postnatal depression and baby illnesses and failure to thrive and all this other stuff. Get over it. It's just dust, sort of thing. So it was definitely kind of the start of it for me as well. So
okay.
Yeah, it sounds like a very common kind of thing. Awesome. All right. So I guess one thing that I'm interested to kind of hear from you is, and one thing that you've talked about before is what kind of causes it? Like, where does perfectionism come from, especially with women who have got lots of things going on, whether it's business or career, babies, or not babies, relationships, all that sort of thing. Like, where does it actually kind of come from?
So there's more than one cause, obviously. There's the way that we're parented. There's definitely culture, like the way that women are socialised in this culture, and there's also trauma. So these all have an impact. Especially, and culture I especially like to talk about because, we're kind of socialised to be the good girl, the nice girl, to, be polite, to be meek. And there's a lot of pressure, like, to fit into all these different kind of roles. And if we step outside of these roles, then we get judged so harshly. So I think there's a lot of women just, like, really scared and worried, I've got to do the right thing or I'm going to get judged.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I personally would agree with it as well. And there's a lot of stories, again, from people I've spoken to on the show about whether it was a parent, and especially with parents. And I've had conversations. I did a presentation on the Recovering Perfectionist at Seven Sisters Festival a few years ago, and there was some really amazing conversations that kind of came up. And one thing that I noticed was that there were a lot of young women who were saying, my parents, especially my dad, but not always, had massive expectations, and there was a lot of pressure to perform academically as well as on the sports field, as well as, like you said, being the good girl, being nice, being polite, helping your mother, all that sort of thing. And the way that I find it really interesting, the way that a lot of people describe that, but they're still really defensive of, oh no, but they just wanted the best for me, or like it's this weird kind of paradigm where it's caused so much angst and so much pressure and so much whatever, but also they don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. Is that a thing as well?
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't they don't want their parents demonized. Like, they come to therapy and they want to talk a little bit about their parents, but they're also like very protective of them at the same time.
Yeah. And so, and I guess that, like, I think, a lot of us are like that. Some people are willing to totally, thrash their parents and that sort of thing. But a lot of us, we know that all the stuff that there's a little bit of trauma or resentment or whatever, parents and whoever was, the influences, they were doing it from a place of love and they just wanted the best for us and all of that sort of thing. So how do you kind of reconcile that, I guess, when you're trying to move past it and trying not to worry about being perfectionist and all of these sort of things, but it's kind of ingrained in you and you still have that desire to sort of impress those people who've installed it in you in the beginning?
You mean your parents? You still have a desire to impress your parents?
Yeah.
I think that kind of needs to be worked through, because part of the teenage rebellion is it's a normal phase of development where we rebel against our parents' expectations and stuff like that. And what often happens is that stage doesn't actually become resolved in people. They're still trying to get that approval. But, successful adolescence is about breaking away from your parents' expectations, forming your own identity.
That's so terrifying. My kids are 10 years away from it yet, but it's terrifying. I'll come knocking on your door closer to the time.
What I'm saying is, if people are still trying to get their parents' approval, they haven't quite resolved their adolescence.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That feels like a bit of a thing. So, I think to I guess explain a bit of, not even explain a heap of my story, but in my sort of thing, I know a lot of perfectionism has come in very different ways from my mum and my dad. And whilst I'm not actively trying to impress anyone, I still really enjoy like the pat on the back or the well done or I'm proud of you or those sorts of things. And sometimes when I stuff up, I think, oh God, and I've got like one of my parents on my shoulder, not even necessarily being critical, but I can just see and hear what they would probably say if they could see this stuff up that I've just made today, sort of thing. So, so is that like an inner critic kind of thing coming out that we've just attached a voice to, or is that actually unresolved shit with our parents?
Same. It's both.
Yeah, right.
So if you have a critical parent, you'll internalize that. So you'll internalize your own inner critic. So they'll be there. The critic will be there when your parent's not there.
Okay.
So what I encourage people to do is to create like another voice on their other shoulder, which argues with the inner critic.
Okay.
Hey, no, that's not right. Or shut up or something.
The mouthy version. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I really like that actually. I talk often about, I can't remember who I initially heard this analogy from. I can't think who it was, but we talked about like who's driving the bus. So, you've got all of your inner critics and all of your inner perfectionists and all of these, parts of your personality who are on the bus, and it depends, which one's kind of driving the bus and which one's up the back sucking their thumb and which one's trying to navigate and give directions, and, making room for all of those parts of your persona and being a bit more decisive about who gets to run the show and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it makes me think about meditation, because when we're learning to meditate, it's about letting those thoughts go and not getting caught up in them. And I think it's the same with the inner critic. Like, if just because it's there, do you have to listen to it?
Sure.
Are you going to let it hold you back, or
yeah,
are you going to kind of say, oh, yeah, that's nice, dear?
exactly. Throw a piece of candy and she can go and sit in the corner and chew on that for a little bit. Awesome. So how do you see, I mean, obviously a lot of people, all the people that I work with are women who run their own business. Usually they're solopreneurs. Sometimes they've got a small team. Sometimes they're in startups. Sometimes they're more established and that sort of thing. So in that sort of demographic, how do you see perfectionism showing up? What sort of things, how is it manifesting in their sort of daily life with those sort of people?
Well, I'm not a business coach, so I'm not sure if I can answer that.
You work with women who are in that sort of space, though, in terms of like their career, and does it sort of hold them back with getting started or getting finished or being?
Yeah, there's a lot of procrastination going on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And where does that come from? What's procrastination actually? What is it actually?
Well, I think it's overwhelming anxiety, like, oh my God, I've got these million things to do and I've got to do them all really well, or, I can't even start, and if it's got to be done perfectly, it's not even worth trying.
Yeah. I think that's a big one. I think, we talk a lot about, again, on the show, that a lot of procrastination is actually kind of fear, because we think it's, like, if I can't do it perfectly, I might as well not do it at all. Or if I don't know exactly what the end product needs to look like or is going to look like and exactly the steps of getting there, it's too hard basket and I won't even kind of get started. Yeah.
If I fail, oh my God, what if I make a mistake?
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. And people might know that I'm not perfect.
Yeah, and then that's embarrassing, and that's when all the shame kicks in.
Yeah, sure. So shame is a big thing around perfectionists, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So you've already mentioned like coming up with the antidote to the critic on your other shoulder. What other sort of, I guess, tips and takeaways can you give, obviously without being in the therapy room or anything like that, but as a general thing that tends to help a lot of people in that space? What sort of other things can we kind of be doing?
Well, with procrastination, I'm a really big fan of the mini goal.
Okay.
So if you've got all these overwhelming things that, you need to do and you're kind of just paralyzed, it's breaking it down to the tiniest step until it's small enough that you'll take action.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that kind of builds momentum.
Yeah.
So, for example, oh my God, I've got like this essay or paper that I need to write and it's too overwhelming and I can't get started. Okay, what's my mini goal? Okay, I'm just going to like open a Word document.
Yes.
And then you open the document. Okay, what's my next mini goal? Okay, well, I'm just going to type my name. And then what's my next mini goal? I'm just going to write the title. And then I'm just going to write a few ideas. And before you know it, you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. So that's even breaking it down so much further than I would always be like, yeah, I thought you were going to say, just write the introduction or just write the first paragraph or something. But actually the mini goal is open a Word document and go make yourself coffee.
Well, as small as you need it to be to get going.
Right. Yeah. And do you find that when people are in that overwhelmed kind of phase that they can see what they need to be doing but they just don't do it? Or is it like they kind of need the accountability or someone to help them break it down? They can't see the forest for the trees. It's like all or nothing.
I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
I think if they knew about the mini goal, then they probably wouldn't need help. They'd be able to do it for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Know that strategy, and it's so basic, but it's really, really effective.
Yeah, right. Yeah, awesome. And what about finishing? We often talk about sometimes the perfectionism stops you from starting something, but even once you've started something, and I know I was very guilty when I first started my business, that I would start lots of things and I had so many unfinished things, unfinished blogs, unfinished courses. I'd done videos, but I hadn't done anything with them. And, I just had all of this stuff that I'd started and I'd put some love into, but it never got to be, in front of anyone. Yeah. So I had trouble finishing, and partly the finishing, but partly the getting it in front of people, because what if it fails? What if I look stupid? What if it doesn't work? What if it does work and I get too busy and I blah, 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 all of that sort of thing. So what about, do you find there's a process or a system that people can take to make sure that if they've started something that they are more likely to actually finish it and put it out into the world?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that example.
Let's pull that one apart.
So like I'm a big fan of quotes, and someone gave me one a few years ago, which was putting 80% of something out there is better than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, right.
So, and also, you know, kind of getting yourself out of the way. Like if you don't put anything out there, you're helping no one.
Mm.
And I recently did a video about what you just said, like what if everybody hates it, you know, because that's a big fear that a lot of us have. Like if I put myself out there, what if nobody likes it? What if everybody hates me? And, you know, like how realistic is that? You know, maybe some people will hate it and some people will love it.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And you're never going to be all things to all people and all that sort of thing. Hey, it's been, I reckon I've had this conversation 1,000 times with different people, but it's been probably the biggest lesson for me since I started my business and since I've been running the podcast and speaking to people about it, is this idea of the more authentic that you are, the more people the more of the right people you'll magnetize, and the more of the wrong people you'll repel. And when I first heard that years ago, I was mortified. Like it made me feel almost nauseous at the idea of repelling someone, at the idea of someone going, oh yeah, I hear what she has to say and I disagree and I don't like it and I don't like her, so I'm never speaking to her. That just made me feel like, oh my gosh, I failed as a human being, sort of thing. But the more that I've had experience with trying to push the people and the relationships and the experiences and the interactions with people that I know are repellent and that are repellent to me, but I'm almost like, the more repellent they are, the harder I try to win them over, sort of thing. But the more that I've had those interactions and allowed myself to go, actually, this is no good. This is not what I need, and it's not leaving enough space for the good stuff, the easier it's kind of gotten to stand more in that, like, this is me, this is, you know, warts and all sort of thing. Come along and play or go away. It doesn't really bother me, sort of thing. Is that a big part of it? Like the understanding who you are and being okay with the warts and all stuff?
Well, I mean, I think what you're giving is a really great example of how you built resiliency to it. You know, you found it really hard to stomach that idea, but you kind of went with it anyway. And you saw like what happened when you faced that fear. Yeah,
exactly.
That bad, really?
No, exactly. And it's, you know, another thing we talk about, I'm just like rehashing everything, which is awesome to chat about this with you, is the failing fast and the fear of failure. And actually the best thing you can do, especially as a perfectionist, when you're not used to seeing red crosses and you're not used to seeing, you know, anything less than 100% and all that sort of thing, is to actually go out and practice failing and practice getting told no, and just kind of start hearing those things a little bit more and realizing that no one died, everyone's fine, the world keeps going, no one hates you, they just disagreed with you or whatever. When I was at this Seven Sisters things, I kept kind of getting back to this point and being like, but did you die? From that movie The Hangover, and like, if you didn't die, don't worry about it, keep moving, like you're fine, it's all good. But it's almost like you've got to do a heap of those little ones just to build up the trust in that process that it's going to be okay even if you fail.
Yeah, it's really about feel the fear and do it anyway, because take the power out of the fear, you got to face it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then you build resilience. You know, like in business, you got to build a bit of resilience for rejection. It's just part of it. And that was a massive thing for me. Like I couldn't handle rejection at all. I couldn't handle one no.
Yes.
But you get used to it.
Yeah, you do. And it sort of starts to become not a challenge, but I remember hearing someone say, when you get your first hater or your first person who asks for a refund or something, you should celebrate it, because it means that enough people have seen you, that someone's seen you and it's triggered them for whatever reason. Not that it's nice to trigger people, but also it's not you, it's them, sort of thing. And it means that you're out there and people are understanding your message, and some people aren't going to like it, but it should be celebrated rather than make you kind of go and, you know, rock yourself to sleep in a corner and cry. And I mean, the first couple of times that I had little icky interactions, and nothing that was dreadful, to be totally honest, but being very sensitive and a people pleaser, you know, it didn't take much to make me kind of run away freaking out. I kind of went to pieces, and it really shattered my whole world for a few days until I realized that no one died. Everything was fine. I apologized for my mistakes, or I, you know, made it better as much as I could, or I just got okay with going, okay, well, we're not meant to be together, basically. We're not each other's people, and that's okay. So, yeah. But what sort of things help that? Like, is it good to have someone who can kind of call you out on your bullshit with that sort of thing and be like an accountability buddy, or is it really about just trying all the different things and seeing what sort of sticks for you?
Both, I think. You know, it always helps to have support.
Yep.
It's the right support. But then at the end of the day, you got to do it, don't you? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's about building resiliency, the fact that life isn't perfect. And one phrase that I really liked, and one of my clients has also really liked this, is life is a rich tapestry. It's messy, it's crazy, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is, a beautiful, imperfect kind of mess.
Yeah, right.
Tapestry.
Yeah.
And, you know, the more we can kind of build resiliency to that, you know, like for me, even being late was a massive thing. I had no, like, confidence in myself to be late. Now I'm like, okay, sometimes I'm just going to be late.
Yeah, I'm human, exactly. And I think we hold ourselves to so much higher standards than we would anybody else. And that was a really big thing for me. You know, one thing that someone said to me, or maybe it was a meme I saw on Facebook years ago, I can't remember, but something along the lines of, you know, everything that you expect from yourself and that you say to yourself, would you say that to your best friend? I always get teary just thinking about those words, because I was just so mean to myself. I was so nasty to myself. I had so little belief. And if I heard anyone, you know, with the ideas or with the worries or the fears or anything that I was having, that I was then chastising myself for, and I heard someone else saying them, I'd be like, no, she'll be right. Give it a bash. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I honestly believe, with regards to everyone else, no, don't worry about it. It should be good. It's all fine. But I was so unforgiving when it came to doing it for myself. So that was, that was a really big thing for me. Just going, there's no way that the words would come out of my mouth to anyone, let alone my best friend, that come out of my head towards myself in the mirror, sort of thing.
And that's interesting, because, like, you're really hard on yourself, but you don't project that out to other people, whereas some people also project that out to other people.
Sure, yeah.
Judgment, like they're really judgy on themselves, and then they'll be really judgy on other women, and then it's a vicious cycle, because all these women are, like, worried about being judged by all these other women.
Yeah, right. And we can be really cruel. Like, I think kids can be really cruel to each other, but it does surprise me how bitchy and how mean women can be to each other as well. And, you know, I sometimes look at, you know, male friendships and how, you know, it just seems like they'll have a jab at each other. If they've got a problem, they'll bring it up and they get over it and then they move on and that sort of thing. Whereas women, I mean, hopefully that, you know, and I feel really blessed in my, you know, groups of many, many different kind of circles of friends, that I don't feel like there's any of that going on. But I'm probably naive to say there's none of that going on, because, you know, there's
a lot of it going on.
It would be, you know. But again, I guess it's that resilience, and it's kind of like, well, if that's going on, whatever, I don't want to be a part of it. And also, if that's going on about me, I definitely don't want to be part of it. And my auntie always used to say, I think she even had it on the wall somewhere, what you think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
And that quote seems to be doing the rounds again lately these days. And I just think it was such and I remember reading that when I was probably, 12 or 13. And what a beautiful, and as a, you know, teenager, I was like, yeah, what you think of me is none of my, I don't care what you think of me, which I completely did, but it was a nice phrase to, you know, spout out every now and then. But I think having that in my head somewhere definitely kind of, made things a little bit easier to, you know, jump over when I kind of needed to. So yeah, it is a thing. It's hard. It's easier said than done, right? Like, I still will have a minor meltdown if I think someone doesn't like me, until I get my shit back together and realize I don't actually care, but there's still a part of me that does. And, you know, you never really 100% get rid of the perfectionist, right? You kind of just have...
You have ways to manage it. Like, for me, I don't procrastinate at all anymore. Like, I feel the anxiety about things and I want to run away. But now I can go, no, if I procrastinate, the more I procrastinate, the worse I'm going to feel. Yeah. So let's do my mini goals and deal with this.
Yeah, awesome. I love the mini goals. I'm a massive fan of breaking everything down and chunking big projects down. And I must admit, I don't probably do it enough for myself unless it's a strategic business thing. But if it's just something that I'm procrastinating with, I'll usually just put it on my to-do list and then go and do something else instead. So I'm going to give that one a go, especially with non-business stuff. I'm pretty good with the biz stuff, but with the personal things, it's like, nah, I've got to fill out that huge form. That feels like way too hard. And I've got to go and find where the form, I'll just put it on the list for another day, and it's 6 weeks later, it's still there, sort of thing. So yeah, I might give that a bash.
It's nagging you kind of the back of your mind all the time, like, I haven't done that, I haven't done that.
Yeah. So tell me, I often say, like, my inner perfectionist, she's not going anywhere. She's quieter these days, and she's not, like, we have rules, we have boundaries. She's not allowed in the business. She's not allowed to touch my laptop. She's basically like another child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my kids aren't allowed to touch my laptop. They're not allowed to talk to me while I'm on a phone call and that sort of thing. So, she's kind of got the same rules. But there's some things that I kind of half joking and half actually completely mean, where I still allow her to do some things. Like, she's the one who writes the birthday cards and sends them on time. And she's the one who, like, keeps the house, like, the house is usually pretty tidy and clean, and sometimes she goes a little bit over the top with that sort of thing. But it's like I kind of allow her to do her little perfectionist things in some places. Is that just me, like, counterbalancing it or making excuses for it, or is that cool?
I think it's cool,
Okay,
because
cool.
Miss Perfectionism has got some great qualities. So
Yes.
you use her great qualities,
Yeah.
if they're going to help you.
Yeah, awesome. That's really good to know. Sometimes I think, maybe I'm like going, okay, well, I won't do this perfectly only if I get to do that perfectly. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not the idea, but sometimes it's kind of is the idea. Awesome. Look, we could talk about this all day. This has been such an interesting chat, and it's been so nice to hear, a bit more of the scientific and the psychological viewpoint on perfectionism, and I hope it's been super helpful for our listeners as well. So what would you say for anyone who's listening who kind of is either like, yep, that's totally me, I need to do something about this ridiculous stuff, or maybe this is me, I'm not quite sure, whatever. Have you got any sort of takeaways that people can sort of start to either think about, or actions that they can take, like, now to kind of start moving through some of that stuff?
That's a really big question.
Just one action, one thing that you find works kind of really nicely for a lot of people then.
I need to use my mini goal.
Awesome. Back to the mini goals. Break it down.
A tip. I guess I'd like to think, reflect on, and I know this is a hard question for some women, what is it that you want in life?
Yeah.
And how's your perfectionism getting in the way of that?
Mm.
What do you want to do about it?
Yeah. I really like that. I've started writing a book around my experience with this, and especially how it comes up in business and that sort of thing. And one of the first suggestions is to make a bit of a list of all the things that you haven't done or won't do or don't feel comfortable doing, because your inner perfectionist is kind of gatekeeping that, and she's saying, like, no, we don't do that, i.e. wearing a bikini at the beach, or swimming in that beautiful waterfall because you had to wear a bikini, or speaking on stage because you feel like you're not quite sure what your message is, or because you don't like how you look, and like all those sorts of things. And it's staggering when I've done it myself, and other people I've worked with have done it, and it's really, I get even teary just thinking about it, because there's so many things that I feel like I've missed out on because I was worried about it not being perfect, so I didn't do it at all. And I'm like, God, that's such a shame. It's such a shame that that's kind of passed by, or it's something that I didn't get to do, or that I didn't get to help other people with. I didn't get to do that sort of thing. So just doing that as an initial activity is really powerful, I think. So you can go, right, enough is enough. Like, there's no more missing out. I'm not going to let any more time pass by.
Yeah, because you want to minimize the amount of time that you're feeling regret, or you're, grieving for things you missed out on, because, you've got this beautiful opportunity to enjoy life. So grab by the horns.
Yeah. Yeah, what she said. Hashtag what she said. Awesome. Thank you so much, Honor. And I know you've got a beautiful ebook, a free ebook that's available on your website. So we'll pop the show notes for that we'll pop the link for that into the show notes if anyone wants to go and grab that and contact you and follow you around social media and all of that sort of thing. Yep. I think you'll be an awesome person for us to all have in our back pockets on speed dial, probably. Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Honor. We'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks for having me. Bye.
See you.